Welcome to episode 2 of 10-Minute Enigmas. Today's coffee break story is a tale of epic survival against all odds, the legendary Imperial Trans-Antarctic polar expedition led by Ernest Shackleton. Ernest Shackleton was born in 1874 in County Kildare, Ireland, to a middle-class family. His dad, Henry Shackleton, was a respected civil servant, and Ernest was one of 10 children. At 16, he joined the British Merchant Navy. This maritime career gave him the practical skills and experience that set the stage for his later polar expeditions. Young Ernest was described as ambitious, restless, and curious, often seeking adventure and new challenges. In the early 20th century, Sir Ernest Shackleton embarked on an audacious and perilous expedition that would become one of the most extraordinary tales of human resilience, courage, and survival. This is the incredible story of the Imperial Trans-Antarctic expedition. Shackleton's 1914 to 1917 attempt to cross the uncharted Antarctic continent from coast to coast. What began as a groundbreaking adventure soon became a legendary story of survival against all odds, despite facing impossible circumstances in one of the most remote and unforgiving places on Earth. Ernest Shackleton was no stranger to polar exploration. He had already made 2 trips to Antarctica, namely the Discovery Expedition in 1901 and the Nimrod Expedition in 1907, when he decided to embark on his most ambitious venture yet. In 1914, he proposed a daring plan to traverse the Antarctic continent, a feat that had never been accomplished before. His plan was to land on the continent's Weddell Sea coast, trek across the ice to the Ross Sea, and be picked up by a ship waiting for them on the other side. Shackleton had an exceptional ability to inspire people to follow him, and his leadership skills were well known. He recruited a diverse group of 27 men, scientists, sailors, and adventurers who shared his dream. Fun fact: the expedition also included 69 dogs and a tomcat dubbed Mrs. Chippy. They set sail on August 1st, 1914, aboard the Endurance, a ship specially designed to withstand the pressures of the Antarctic ice. Shackleton's optimism and confidence were contagious, and the men believed they could accomplish the impossible. The Endurance left London on August 8th, 1914, as the world was on the brink of war. After months at sea, the Endurance arrived in the Weddell Sea in January 1915, where the crew prepared to disembark and begin their trek across the continent. However, things quickly took a turn for the worse. The sea was packed with dense, shifting ice, and within weeks of arrival, the crew's hopes were dashed as Endurance found itself stuck fast in the ice floes. The ship was immobile, its sails useless against the relentless pressure of the surrounding ice. The crew attempted to free the vessel by cutting through the ice with saws and axes, but the ice continued to close in around them, trapping the ship in a thick, unrelenting grip. Shackleton's men worked tirelessly for weeks, trying to cut through the thick, shifting ice. As the days turned into weeks, then months, they became increasingly frustrated. The ice was not only preventing them from traveling across the continent, it was slowly and methodically destroying their ship. Shackleton continuously reassured his men and maintained morale, but as the months passed, the Endurance became more and more entrenched. By the autumn of 1915, the Endurance was still trapped. Shackleton and his men began to realize that they might have to spend the entire winter there, and the only hope for survival was to stay alive until the ice would eventually free them. They had no choice but to set up camp on the ice. The men skillfully adapted to their new environment, using their time to prepare for the long winter ahead. Building makeshift shelters, shoveling snow, hunting seals for food, and trying to maintain their physical and mental well-being. Despite the harsh conditions, Shackleton remained focused on keeping morale high. He organized games, lectures, and even musical performances, helping to distract the men from the crushing isolation and fear of their situation. The men kept themselves amused by racing their sled dogs, wagering cigarettes and chocolate on the contests. Shackleton's calm demeanor and ability to remain positive during this time inspired his crew to remain hopeful over the months without any sign of rescue. As time dragged on, the situation became even more desperate. On October 27, 1915, the Endurance was finally doomed. The ship, once a symbol of hope and adventure, was crushed by the surrounding ice to nothing more than a pile of splintered wood and swallowed by the unforgiving Antarctic ice. The men salvaged what provisions they could from the wreckage. Reportedly, Shackleton served his crew coffee early the next morning and calmly announced, "Ship and stores have gone, so now we'll go home." They now faced an even more daunting challenge: to survive in the frozen wilderness without the shelter and resources of their ship. Shackleton knew that they could not stay on the ice indefinitely. They needed to reach land, any land, to have a chance of survival. The crew set out on foot, dragging sleds loaded with their remaining supplies. Their goal was to reach Elephant Island, a remote piece of land some 100 miles away on the edge of the Antarctic peninsula. The journey was harrowing. The men struggled to move across the shifting ice, facing relentless gale-force winds, freezing temperatures, nearly constant hunger and exhaustion. Many suffered from frostbite and injuries, but Shackleton kept them moving, urging them onward. After over 2 months of exhausting travel, they finally reached the shore of Elephant Island in April 1916. But although they were on land, their troubles were far from over. Elephant Island was a barren, windswept island, one of the most isolated places on Earth, and to stay on the remote outpost almost certainly meant death. Shackleton now faced a final, desperate gamble. On Elephant Island, they were out of reach of any passing ships, and their food supplies were dwindling. He knew that if he didn't act quickly, none of them would survive much longer. In one of the most remarkable acts of bravery in history, Shackleton took a small crew to the sea to make a daring journey across 800 miles, or 1,300 kilometers, of the roughest ocean in the world, with the goal of reaching a whaling station on the southern coast of South America. Shackleton and 5 men set sail in a small 22-foot or 6.7-meter lifeboat called the James Caird. The boat was ill-suited for the treacherous conditions they would face, and the men were at the mercy of the roaring waters and hurricane-force winds. For 16 days, Shackleton and his crew battled the elements: high winds, massive waves, and constant fear of capsizing. Shackleton recalled, "The wind simply shrieked as it tore the tops off the waves. Down into valleys, up to tossing heights, straining until her seams opened, swung our little boat." Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the emaciated men reached land, followed by an arduous 22-mile trek across glacier-draped mountains previously untraversed by humans to reach the whaling station on South Georgia Island. Shackleton had accomplished the impossible, navigating one of the most dangerous stretches of ocean in a tiny boat in the hope of saving his men. After reaching the whaling station, Shackleton immediately organized a rescue mission. However, this final endeavor emerged as the most challenging and time-intensive of all. The first ship ran critically low on fuel while attempting to maneuver through the pack ice and was forced to turn back. In the next attempt, a vessel sent by the government of Uruguay managed to approach within 100 miles of Elephant Island and had to give up due to the ice. On August 30th, 1916, 128 days after leaving on the lifeboat, Shackleton was finally able to return to Elephant Island on a ship procured from Chile, the Yelcho, and rescue his near-starved men. The ordeal was finally over, but Shackleton's legend as a leader and survivor was just beginning. Remarkably, not a single life was lost during the entire expedition. The men had endured the most extreme conditions imaginable: extreme cold, hunger, isolation, and physical exhaustion, and emerged victorious. The Endurance expedition became a symbol of human resilience and the power of leadership in the face of overwhelming adversity. Shackleton's ability to maintain hope and keep his men together during their darkest moments was nothing short of extraordinary. The survival story of these men continues to inspire generations of adventurers, survivors, and leaders to this day as a beacon of hope, remaining one of the most inspiring examples of how people can rise above seemingly insurmountable challenges. On March 9, 2022, a team of scientists finally discovered the remains of the Endurance at the bottom of Antarctica's Weddell Sea, nearly 10,000 feet deep in clear and icy waters. Shackleton's legacy serves as a reminder that even in the darkest of times, when survival seems impossible, there is always hope if you have the courage to lead, the strength to endure, and the will to survive. If you have enjoyed this incredible story of survival and leadership, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more 10-minute tales. Please share this video with anyone who needs a reminder of the power of the human spirit. Until next time, keep striving, no matter what the odds.